Inspired by last week's zesty 10-note long shred sequence lick, on today's lesson I'm going to be showing you guys how to play a cool 16-note long pattern that I came up with that's easy to play and going to get you shredding in no time flat. Hey there kids, and welcome to this week's installment of Weekend Wankshop. Here's your best buddy, Uncle Ben. On last week's episode I showed you guys how to play my tremendous tens lick, which is a great one to have in your arsenal of shred licks because it doesn't like restart on obvious points of the beat like a lot of sequence licks do. But sometimes you do want stuff that's a little bit more rhythmically obvious that, you know, starts and ends on those downbeats. That way you can really hear the pattern at work and feel the power of the groove. On today's lesson I'm going to show you guys how to play a cool 16-note long pattern that I came up with that spans 2 strings and 4 beats. During this lesson I'm also going to show you how you can invert these patterns around so that they sound even less obvious when you use them. You can take this concept and apply it to whatever scale it is you're working with at the time, but today's lesson is in the key of A minor. But as always, before we get into the lesson, let's hear it again at stepdad speed. As always, you guys can find full tabs for this lesson over on my Instagram page at Ben Eller Guitars, or you can search for hashtag Weekend Wankshop 228. All you gotta do is find the tabs for the lesson, learn how to play the lick, then upload a video of yourself shredding through it, along with the hashtag Weekend Wankshop. And here's something new I'm trying out this week for my supporters over on my Patreon page. I'm also going to be uploading another mini lesson to complement this video on how to use this with a sending scale pattern. So going from the low notes to the high notes using the same 16-note long sequence. That's going to be available to everybody that supports me on Patreon. So even if you're just at the $1 level, you're going to get access to another lesson to go along with this one, and tabs and all that jazz. Patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. So let me give you a little bit of insight into my recovering homeschooled mind as to what I was thinking about whenever I was putting this lick together for you guys to practice, because there's a little bit of math involved. Okay, think of it this way. You're playing 16th notes, right? That means 4 per beat. 1 E-enda, 2 E-enda, 3 E-enda, 4 E-enda. 4 notes per beat that's going by, right? That means in a measure of music, there are 16 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And of course there's a variety of different ways to make the number 16 occur. You could have 8 notes plus 8 notes, that gives you 16 notes, right? But another way that I was thinking of it is 6 plus 6 plus 4. So in other words, if I have a 6-note phrase plus another 6-note phrase, if I round that off with a 4-note phrase, that means I'll have a total of 16 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And that is a chunk of notes that resolves nice and evenly over 4 beats. Now, in order to do the first chunk of this lick, what I'm doing is I'm starting off here on the high E string and I'm playing 17, 15, and 13 2 times in a row, like this. That's my first group of 6 notes. And then on the next string here, the B string, I'm going to play the same frets. Gives me the notes E, D, and C. We're going to play those 2 times. So 17, 15, and 13 2 times. So far you just have a typical 6's lick. Your ear probably wants that to be triplet, 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 triplet. But again, we're playing 16th notes. So now I'm short. I still got 4 notes I need to do to make a total 16-note phrase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the next note in the scale, the B note here on fret number 12 of the B string. And I'm going to play 12, 15, 13, 12. Again, that's a 3-note little spot here that I'm turning into 4 notes based on the way I'm phrasing it. So you have kind of the short string, which is 6, and then the long string, which is 10 notes. Okay, because it's 6 plus 4, and that gives you a total of those 16 notes. Now at that point, you could basically take what you've been playing there and just keep going through the scale. 6, 10, 6, 10. Just kind of playing that same idea through octaves like that. But I wanted to mix this up a little bit because I thought when I was playing it that way, it sounded very patterny. It sounded very exercisey, you know what I mean? Because you're just hearing the same lick repeating in octaves. So think of it this way, right? In order to play this 16 note phrase, you're using a pair of strings. The first one occurs on E and B. You had the short string, then the long string. So the next time through this lick here, we're going to use the G and D strings. And what I did to make this sound more randomized and interesting is I reversed the order. I play the long string on the G, in other words, the 10 note phrase, then the 6 note phrase, the shorter phrase, on the next string. So in other words, where the first phrase went short, 6 note phrase, to long, 10 note phrase, the next phrase here is going to go from long, 10 note phrase, to the shorter 6 note phrase. And I'm doing that by playing my G here. I'm playing 14, 12, and 10, 2 times in a row. Then you got to go down to the next note in the scale, which is on fret number 9, the E note. We're going to play 9, 12, 10, 9. Okay, so on the G now you have this. Then you got to play the 6 note phrase on the D string here. 12, 10, and 9, 2 times in a row. Okay? So now you have this. And then lastly, on the last pair of strings through this lick, the A and E strings, I go back to the original idea of short phrase, then long phrase. So on the A string here, we're going to play 12, 10, and 8 2 times. Then on the low E string here, you're going to play 12, 10, and 8 2 times. Go down to 7, 10, 8, 7. Okay? Again, the long phrase happening on the second string. And then to resolve, I ended up on the A note, fret 5 of the low E string. That way it gets a nice resolution in there. So the entire lick should sound something like this. I also arranged these notes in even numbered groupings, 6s and 10s, to play to my picking strengths as a primarily downward pick slanting kind of player. That means that basically if I start on a downstroke, I'm going to be ending on an upstroke, which is when it's easiest for me to change strengths due to my outrageous picking angle. See how my upstrokes kind of go out and away from the strings like that. Whenever you arrange licks in even numbers like what I've done here, 6s and 10s, it just makes that kind of thing much easier to do. However, if you find you're more of an upwards pick slanting player with your downstrokes kind of going out and away and your upstrokes kind of going into the strings like that right there, try playing this exact same lick only starting on an upstroke and you'll have a lot more success. Because that means you'll always be changing strings after a downstrokes, which will be your strongest suit like this. So again, if you're an upwards pick slanting player, try starting this lick with an upstroke. If you're a downwards pick slanting player, try starting it with a downstroke. I think it's good to be able to do both. I would advise you guys to try it on your own and see what other combinations of 6 plus 10 you can find to make your own 16 note long 4-beat phrases that you can use in your own shredding. One of the first licks I came up with to kind of utilize that 6 plus 10 equals 16 concept is to basically just put that on the top 2 strings of the guitar descending down the neck. So I could play the 6 on the E, the 10 on the B, then go back to the E for 6, 10, 6, 10, or even mix it up so you got 10 on the E, 6 on the B, 10, 6, and so on. Just basically mixing that up as many different ways as you possibly can. Keep in mind there's also more than one way to play, you know, a 6 or a 4 or whatever. You could play this for a 6. You know what I mean? So instead of playing this as your 6, you could replace these all with whatever it is that you want to do there, just to rearrange that. But yeah, it's fun just to kind of sit down sometimes and think about how many different ways could I spell out 16. You know, how many different combinations can you come up with to do that and base a lick or a scale pattern or whatever around those concepts. And keep in mind, just like I was talking about earlier, the more you mix this up, the better. If you play the same pattern over and over and over and again, the listener's ear can decipher it and start to predict what's going to happen before it gets there. And that's when stuff starts to sound very exercisey and boring, you know? So be sure to change these things up in your own playing. Play a 6, then a 10, then a 10, then a 6, then a 10, then a 6. Whatever it is you can do to make this sound randomized. Hopefully that gives you guys some cool ideas that you can use in your own soloing. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like it and subscribe to my channel for new lessons coming at you every single week. Follow me on Instagram at Ben Eller Guitars, on Facebook at facebook.com/UncleBenEller. And don't forget, if you like what you see here and you want that companion ascending lick that I was talking about earlier, be sure to support me on Patreon over at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Even if you just choose to donate $1, you get access to the companion video. So keep that in mind as you choose what tier works the best for you. Thanks again for watching. Now get away from that screen that's in front of your face and go play some gosh darn guitar. Less clicking, more picking.